During this record-breaking cold winter, millions of Ukrainians are regularly left without electricity, water or heat as temperatures plummet to minus 20 Celsius and below. Does Russia intend to make life in Ukraine unlivable? Can the country's civilian infrastructure continue to withstand such a massive, relentless assault? And what are the alternatives for the future? You are listening to the Explaining Ukraine podcast. Explaining Ukraine is a podcast by UkraineWorld, an English-language media outlet covering Ukraine. I am your host, Volodymyr Yermolenko, Ukrainian philosopher, editor-in-chief of UkraineWorld and president of PEN Ukraine. My guest today is Oksana Ishchuk, an analyst specializing in international and energy relations at the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21, a prominent Ukrainian think tank. Explaining Ukraine is produced by UkraineWorld and brought to you by Internet Ukraine. Before we begin, a quick reminder, you can support our work on Patreon. Your contributions are essential as we depend heavily on crowdfunding to keep this project running. You can also support our volunteer missions to frontline areas where we deliver direct aid to civilians and defenders. Donations are welcome via PayPal. All relevant links can be found in the episode description. Now, let's begin. Oksana Ishchuk, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, Volodymyr, for inviting me.
We decided to talk about energy. This is one of the most difficult issues in Ukraine. And Russia is really it seems that it is aiming to destroy totally the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. It wants Ukrainians to be without electricity, without heating during very, very difficult winter when the temperatures are very low, sometimes minus 15 Celsius. What do you think? What is the calculation behind the Russian actions? What does it want to achieve?
Speaking about Russians, of course, they are waging war not only from the military point of view, but also from the point of view of annihilation of civilian population. I mean, there are several factors that could be in the core idea of Russians. First is the psychological factor. It means that they want to make population to survive in such obstacles when the possible split in society could be possible in order to make mass protests to make pressure from the point of view of population to our authorities to surrender. That could be the first point. And the second point, of course, is that the survival of every nation, its ability to wage war, to defend itself against enemy, of course, is dependent on its economical potential. And here we could say that this is the second factor of using such atrocities that Russians do with Ukrainians. I mean that when they try to destroy businesses, when they try to destroy economic potential with all these strikes on civilian facilities, it is also the very important factor of waging a war. Because when the economic area is in difficulties, when there is no supply of electricity, of power generation, businesses also try to survive in these circumstances. There is a huge downtime. There is a suspension of all industry activities. I mean that this is the aim that for now Russians are not able to obtain by what they try to do this. And another factor, of course, is the disruption of daily life of Ukrainians when the civilians try to survive without heating, without water supply, and this is more the effort to damage the spirit of all Ukrainians. So this is the genocide of all the Ukrainian nation, and this is the core idea of Russians.
How serious are these damages? Because we hear the news that thousands of buildings, for example, in Kyiv alone, and when we talk about thousands of buildings, we mean residential buildings where hundreds of people live. It's not just a building for one family. So when thousands of buildings are without heating during -10 or -15 Celsius, and that means that they live in their apartments in coats and in basically cold clothes. And when they don't have water, when they don't have canalization, when they don't have all this system, how serious it is in the long run? Can we say that we might be approaching a total collapse when basically major Ukrainian cities will become unlivable?
Speaking about total collapse, we should understand what we are talking about under this definition. If we are talking about difficulties that the population of Kyiv, for example, or Odessa, in what obstacles the population of Kyiv and Odessa now and other cities survive, I mean, it will not the collapse, and this will also strengthen our resilience, maybe. But if to say about the collapse of energy system, the only one they were very successful to do this. This was the 23 of November 2022, when the operator of transmission system UkraineWorld lost the control for only 6 hours. So on the fourth year of war, the enemy was able to do this only for 6 hours. It means the total blackout of the system when the large-scale emergency measures was done, they were successful in this only for 6 hours.
And it happened in the very beginning, right? It's November 22 when Russians started these tactics of destroying Ukrainian energy.
But speaking about the whole collapse of the energy system, we should say that this should be the large-scale emergency situation, large-scale collapse for several weeks or maybe for several months. So this situation is not possible now. Why it is not possible? Because the core idea of our energy system was that it was built in the Soviet time and it has excessive capacities. For example, in 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the consumption in the energy system of Ukraine was at level of 300 billion kilowatts per year. And now this consumption is very low. As for 2025, it's less than 100 billion kilowatt per year. So we have huge excessive capacities, and operator of transmission system operator UkraineWorld, even with all these difficulties, with constant strikes on substations, on transformator capacities, it has possibility to redirect the flows of electricity so that population could have another way to obtain power from another regions. So on the fourth year of war, there was only 6 hours. There was a blackout. And for me, now enemy has not obtained his general aim, and it will not be possible even this year. We can say that yes, we have a lot of difficulties because this year is this heating season is very severe. We have frosts minus 20 Celsius, but this is the main factor that cause such a situation which we have in Kyiv, in Odessa now. Why? Because the system, district heating there was built in large urban areas. Heating system was built in 1960s, 1970s. And it was constructed, designed in such a way when there is a huge combined heat and power plant, and it should supply with power and electricity huge districts, huge neighborhoods. So now when this plant is damaged, we have entire disruption of electricity and heating in the entire districts of Kyiv, of Odessa, for example. So this is the back of entire energy system which were built in Soviet time, and of course. Only on the fourth year of war, when we have severe weather conditions, we began to see this lack of possibilities and the lacks of system which were built in Soviet time.
So, if, for example, we see that Russians are targeting the big thermal electric plants, like in Kharkiv, in Kyiv, and therefore, as you say, the whole neighborhood, like in Kyiv, we have such a huge neighborhood, it's called Troyeshchina, where hundreds of thousands of people live, and there is a real humanitarian disaster there. People are without heating and without electricity. So if Russians destroy one of these big thermal electric plants, are you saying that there's enough electricity in the system in other regions to supply these lacks? Is that what you're saying?
Here we should separate two questions about heating and about electricity. Why? Because yes, it is not possible to heat people of big districts with just gas-fired generation. As it was designed with huge dependence from one power plant, and it will be quite difficult to redesign the system from this point of view. And but speaking about power supply, it will be possible to make the points where power supply will be provided to consumers, and we now see on the level of Kievan authorities when they try to make the status of the apartment buildings which were deprived of electricity and heating. The status of such apartment buildings was increased to the status of critical energy infrastructure now. So they try to make the heating of these buildings with electricity, to make them warm with electricity when it is not possible to use huge power plants, as is the case with Troyeshchina, with combined heat and power plant that's 6. So the system was designed when it is only one plant which could cover all these districts, and now from this point it is not possible to redesign it from the wheels. It's possible, to install huge generators near the buildings, to make to supply with autonomous power supply, but the entire heating system was built with such a lack, and it is impossible, for example, to now to make more gas-fired plants, as Klitschko and Kievan authorities said that now they try to install 66 megawatt of gas-fired capacities, but still for such urban territories like Kyiv, when the consumption is more than 2 gigawatt, 66 megawatt, it's very, very small gas-fired capacities. So the question is that maybe yes, maybe every citizen now should think how to survive in such circumstances, how to find some ways to survive in the future winter season when it will be cold like this one. And maybe the resolution of this will be the sincere communication with the population that nothing could be done at one point. The years should pass to overcome such situation.
We see that Russians seems to be more successful this year than, for example, in previous years. They started this kind of energetic part of genocide in 2022, as you said. And the next years were relatively okay, 23, 24. Now we see that they kind of achieved their results. So I think the fear in Ukrainian citizens that they already know how to harm the most and they will be more successful next winters. What is your feeling about this?
The only success of them, of Russians, was the coincidence of several factors. First factor is weather conditions. Second factor is that truly speaking, our partners now are not at the same pace of supplying us with air defenses, with missile capabilities as it was the case of the first year of war. And it's also a very important factor when our air defenses simply do not have enough missiles to defend critical energy infrastructure. And this weather condition and the lack of military capacities, which were the result of the absence of resolve of our allies, this was the main success of Russians. Speaking about the tactics, of course, in the 2022, for example, it was chaotic strikes on the energy infrastructure on the whole territory of Ukraine. There was no a large-scale use of Shahid drones. And it was the case that when 70 rocket missiles target 70 different critical energy infrastructure objects on the entire territory of Ukraine, of course, it was not possible to obtain some targets and to separate on fragmented islands of entire energy system. But now they try to make this separation by the regions. They target not only the transmission system operator, Ukreinenergo, but they try to also target level below. It's regions, I mean, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Dnipro regions, Odessa region, and another. It's more successful for them to target several critical energy infrastructure objects, Shahid drones, while there are 400 drones, for example, at one region, and then critical energy infrastructure objects are damaged and the entire region suffer blackout. But it is also we should also understand that it is not possible to protect all the critical infrastructure in Ukraine. Of course, you can install object air defenses near nuclear power plants, which provide base load in the system and which provide the 50% of electricity supply in the energy system. But it's not possible to install object air defense near every critical energy infrastructure objects on the entire territory of Ukraine. We have 15 thermal power plants, so only, and no air defenses exist and no physical protection exists which could defend the objects from the targeted strike of ballistic missile at one point with huge with huge fighting head, so explosive head. So it is very difficult, of course, but the tactics of collapse of energy system on fragmented energy islands still is not obtained by Russians. They are not here now. There now, and only local blackouts are possible, and we should find the way how to defend ourselves.
You mentioned nuclear energy plants, and do I understand you correctly that so far Russians were more focused on thermal energy plants, power plants, rather than nuclear ones? And what will happen, or what is happening when they are targeting nuclear power plants? Because Ukraine is famous for its nuclear energy. You said that nuclear energy supplies 50% of the Ukrainian electricity. And even if they do not target the nuclear plants themselves, they can target the transmission infrastructure, transmission systems to cut the electricity which is produced by nuclear power plants from the whole system. What is their tactics?
So they had success in damaging thermal power plants, as you mentioned, but they also try to target nuclear power plants with indirect means. Of course, they do not strike directly at the nuclear power plant, but they try to damage neighboring critical infrastructure, the substations of transmission system operator Ukrenergo, which are responsible for transfer of electricity from the nuclear power plant to the energy system. And it means that it is nuclear terrorism without using direct nuclear explosion. They try to make huge emergency, huge incidents in the system without using direct means. And it is the question also of our partners, because several years ago, at the beginning of war, a lot of experts said that if they will succeed in this nuclear terrorism, the consequences of nuclear incident will be not only the problem of Ukraine, but the problem also of all our neighbors. Nobody knows where the wind will blow in such a case. So in that time, and even now, a lot of experts propose to our partners to make common multi-layer, multinational air defense shield under the territory of Western Ukraine, where the main NPPs are situated, to protect this critical energy infrastructure. And nothing is done on the fourth year of war. Even, for example, Rosatom, which is not only a Russian corporation responsible for civil nuclear energy, but also the corporation which is responsible for military nuclear capacities. Even Rosatom is not under sanctions on the fourth year of war. So, the first strike on the substations of nuclear power plants was on the August of 2024. After this, there were several strikes, and now we see the reports from the Khmelnytsky NPP, from Rivne NPP, that their substations are under constant attacks. And nothing is done, not from the side of our partners, not from the side of International Atomic Agency. So this is the matter which is not only should be resolved in the territory of Ukraine by Ukrainian authorities, but this is the matter of the whole European continent. And the resolution of this will be only the entire multinational multi-layer defense on the western Ukraine and some protective air defense shield.
Let's talk a little bit about what partners can do, because you already mentioned these topics. We lack enough missiles, air defense missiles. We lack this protection of nuclear power plants. What else can partners do? For example, there is this talk about maybe Ukraine should decentralize its energy system and go to smaller power plants and maybe build some more. Is it the way to do that with the help of the partners? So what else do you expect from them?
Of course, this is the way, and we are quite successful in this. For example, in previous year, 762 megawatts of gas-fired generation was installed. It was not a bad result. A lot of renewables were installed. For example, on 2025, 40% of generation in Ukraine could be covered with solar capacities, solar generations. But of course, it is intermittent, and when there is when there is sunlight, there is solar generation. When there is no sunlight, there is no solar generation, like it is in this winter season. So, of course, the concept of energy system of Ukraine, it will be redesigned in future years with the investment of our partners, and in the base of such process, of course, there should be the private business, because the state companies, they are robust because of long tender procedures, and private companies will do it faster. So there should be the light to companies to invest. And some start of this process we have seen in previous years. This is the first one, that the system should be redesigned and be war-proof, with a lot of small generation capacities on the territory of Ukraine, with wind, with solar, and some processes are already started. Another point is, of course, the help of our partners, because now on the fourth year of war, we have seen that the main provider of the sanctions is the armed forces of Ukraine, but not our partners. 19 packages of sanctions were approved, but aggressor has the capacity and possibility to supply its war machine with blood, with financial flow, which is provided by, first of all, by oil export. And here that the steps which we waiting from our partners in the European Union, the Baltic Sea should be closed for the shadow fleet of Russians. And we even propose that, you have not possibility, maybe now you have no resolve to close Baltics, but do it in an asymmetric way. You can do it like Russians did in Black Sea in 2019 when they installed A2 AD zones with denial of access zones when they try to make some exercises on the Black Sea. And in such a way you can close some parts of sea and make it not possible for shadow fleet to travel through Baltic Sea. So there is a lot of ways to close Baltic: asymmetric, non-asymmetric, with really working sanctions. But there is, unfortunately, no resolve to do all the steps, and now we are waiting from support of our partners, and this is the field of maneuver for them, where a lot of things could be done to stop the Russian war machine before the war is not on their territory.
So the shadow fleet is mostly that fleet through which Russia still exports a lot of its oil, right? It's not oil is exported not only through pipelines but also through this fleet, and majority comes through the Baltic Sea. Is that correct?
About 1/3 comes through the Baltic Sea, 1/3 comes through the Black Sea, and another is going through pipelines to China.
How realistic do you think that, for example, Ukrainian attacks, the blockade of the Russian oil exports, Ukrainian attacks on the Russian oil infrastructure, sanctions, how realistic it can lead to the collapse of the Russian oil exporting and gas exporting industry? And we know that hydrocarbons is the key element of the Russian budget.
Of course, in this economic pressure, our allies are very robust, and a lot should be done. For example, if to say about oil supply here, even not saying about our European countries, on the first year of war, Ukrainian authorities still close their eyes on the export of Russian oil through the southern pipeline of Druzhba pipeline. It means to Hungary and Slovakia. Hungary and Slovakia, yes. And here we have possibility to stop it because only this export of Russian Federation through the territory of Ukraine, it provides with $5 billion per year. And all this money are going for production of missiles, which then went to the territory of Ukraine. So here one step, Ukrainian authorities should stop this transfer of oil, transmission of oil through Ukrainian territory, and deprive of enemy with $5 billion annually. What should be done with our partners? We have seen the gas sanctions, but now Russians and Europeans, Russians export of gas and Europeans' import of gas. Europeans try to squeeze every billion cubic meters from this window of opportunity, because the gas sanctions will be online on the 1st January 2028. This is the date when the entire gas supply from Russian Federation to European Union, I mean pipeline one, which is now going through the Turk Stream, and liquid LNG, which going by sea. All these exports should be stopped by 1st January 2028. And now, this is a perception that France or Belgium or even Spain, they are trying to squeeze every billion cubic meter from this window of opportunity and to buy as much as possible. And speaking about, for example, 2025, Russians obtained 7 billion euro on this export of LNG to Europe. It's huge sum, a lot of money, and resolve is needed to make sanctions really working. Another point is the possibility of, for example, G7 to impose really working sanctions, really effective sanctions on secondary sanctions on the states like China, like India, like Turkey, who are the biggest consumer of Russian oil. So a lot should be done, and export of energy is the main blood of Russian war machine.
My last question, what gives you hope?
God gives me hope. But speaking about Ukraine, the resilience of Ukraine, resilience of Ukrainian people, it's something which is unperceivable by our partners, European partners, and by me also. We all remember the huge resolve when the first tanks came on the territory of Ukraine. Everybody was ready to blow these tanks, to target them, even with poor hands, without a weapon in these hands. And this is something which is unperceivable by everybody, and in European Union they now try to understand how it works and how to obtain such level of society resilience to in their way to preparation for their for the war on their territory.
Oksana Ishchuk, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you for inviting.
This was Explaining Ukraine, a podcast by UkraineWorld, an English language media outlet covering Ukraine. I'm your host, Volodymyr Yermolenko. I'm editor-in-chief of UkraineWorld and president of PAN Ukraine. My guest today was Oksana Ishchuk, an analyst specializing in international and energy relations at the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21, a prominent Ukrainian think tank. Let me remind you that you can support our work on Patreon. Your contributions are essential as we depend heavily on crowdfunding to keep this project running. You can also support our volunteer missions to frontline areas where we deliver direct aid to civilians and defenders. Donations are welcome via PayPal. All relevant links can be found in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Stay with us and stand with Ukraine.